Hello, and welcome to the Spirituality and Aging podcast. I'm Chris Jensen, and this is.
Kathy Taylor.
We're so happy you joined us today. We have lots of stuff to share with you. What we want to talk about today is ageism in places that you least expect it, some places where you do expect it, and how it affects you and what you can do about it. We're going to be examining how the prejudice and the stereotypes of ageism affect our self-esteem and our lives. And here's the thing that blew my mind, because I am well past 40, but I read a whole bunch of information about how ageism starts at 40. So I'm assuming everybody listening has been impacted by it. But are you aware how it may have affected your confidence, your sense of worthiness? That's really tricky. So I thought today we'll explore some different areas of ageism, how it can impact us, and what we can do to stay strong and confident in ourselves and know that we're really enough, just the way we are. So let's talk first about ageism in the workplace. This is the most common form of ageism, the most blatant. People are told on their resumes, don't put anything on there prior to a certain date, because they'll instantly know that you're older and they will want you. People get passed over because their employers think that they'll leave within a few years because they're a little older. My daughter was telling me about at her workplace, they were interviewing people. And these are attorneys, and so you want an experienced attorney, right? And they were hiring a couple of people. Yeah. She said the most qualified person, the one that really met all their needs, had a lot of experience, and it was a group who had to process this and vote. And the group didn't want to hire this person because they could tell from the amount of experience they had that they were a little older and maybe they would leave within 5 years or 10 years. What an awful thing. They're missing out on probably the best person for the job. Or maybe you're not getting a promotion. Yeah, because people are assuming you're going to leave. Something's too hard for you. Kathy, you were going to say something?
I don't know if this is the right place to talk about what I was going to say, but because I've been an entrepreneur most of my life, I never had to struggle with the you're too old for the job, that never happened to me. But I had the reverse. I absolutely, when I was in corporate, I was seen as too young to promote, too young to be a manager, too young to know the stuff that I did know. Just, all of the skills and talents that I brought were never acknowledged or really realized within a corporate framework. As an entrepreneur, you're kind of free from that. You can do whatever you want, and you only have yourself to blame if you don't succeed. Nobody's holding you back. But having said that, getting older, even as an entrepreneur in my mid 60s, I feel like definitely people want you for your experience, but they also look at you in terms of, are you vital enough? Do you have enough energy to do the job? Are you still with it mentally? All of those things start to come into play. So yeah, I've experienced ageism in different ways.
Yeah, it impacts you. And I'll tell you an interesting thing about my last marketing job in a technology situation. Yeah. Because of all my years of yoga, I look younger than I am. Right. Mm-hmm. So everyone I worked with assumed I was a lot younger. And I went with that. So here's the thing that I want to share about how stereotypes impact you in more ways than you think, because I went with it, and mm-hmm. I was careful that when I was traveling, people didn't see my passport or things like that, And afterwards, I thought, what?
Why?
What are you doing? This isn't me. There's a level of anxiety when you're not fully yourself.
Right.
And there was a little level of anxiety. And there was such a freedom to let go of their prejudice, which I took on as my prejudice.
Yeah. Yeah. And interesting. Like you came out of the closet. Guess what? I'm home.
Yeah, right. guess what? And I've been doing this job just fine.
Yeah,
But-
better than all of you.
Right. But the thing is to, to recognize that and not let yourself get sucked into it, because then you go down a real rabbit hole.
That is so true. That is so true. You hold yourself back because you're worried about people's perception.
Yeah, people's perception. And, what only matters is what's going on inside of you.
Yes.
And, but that's not always easy to do. This
Yeah.
is your living and you want to keep the income coming, but you can do that and still be
Yes.
yourself,
Yeah, and it really does, like, back to my last point, it really does relate to both spectrums. Like, if you're young and you have the skills and the talents to do the job, don't let them tell you no. Show them you can do the job, right?
Right.
And if you're old and you know that you have the skills and that the job should be yours, but you're afraid that you're going to be seen as somebody too old or won't be around long enough, don't let them get away with it. Show them that you're going to add so much value to their company they can't afford not to hire you. It really is your attitude toward yourself.
That's it right there. The attitude towards yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
You have value and you have to show it and tell it,
Right.
and
Right.
speak up for yourself, which
Right.
takes me into the next setting where we don't realize as much ageism, but in public settings, clerks in stores, they will assume that someone's older, they have all the time in the world, and they'll favor helping a younger person. And they'll also assume the younger customers have more money and will buy more. And remember the movie Pretty Woman?
Yeah,
sure. Kind of raggedy, and they weren't talking to her, and then she came back later with all her bags and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's an ageism. It's a stereotype of prejudice that goes against older people. And so when you're in those public situations, that's the time to speak up, to just, say, hey, I'm here, I want this, I need help, just don't cower or acquiesce or feel like, oh, well, maybe she's right, I'm older, that she shouldn't help me,
Right, absolutely.
But
know your worth. Know
your worth, feel that inner power. Just
Right.
let your inner power come through. Not that you should be rude, but you got to speak up. In yoga, we have a thing about when someone is threatening you, you don't want to hurt them in your snake. You don't want to bite them and kill them, but you do want to hiss.
Yes.
You want to hiss.
I'm hissing at you.
Yeah, you can't let them walk all over you. You got to hiss that. That's the time to hiss. You don't have to be rude or obnoxious. Just hiss. Just be firm and clear.
Yep, absolutely.
Because every time you back away from it, it hurts your own self-esteem.
That's so true.
And then you go down that bad path. It also happens in families, families often, assume that you don't understand things because you're older, or your way of doing things in the past is wrong just because it was done before. And they assume maybe that you're not aware of things. Like, do they really think you can't read the news or use Google? It's some interesting things. A friend of my daughter's had to communicate with me about something. And so she asked my daughter about my phone number. She said, oh, will she get texts, like, like the assumption, that, and so, we deal with.
Why can't dinosaurs talk? Because they're dead.
Right.
Yeah, she can get text.
So, it's kind of like, we deal with it in our families too. And in that situation too, just like in the public situation, we have to get in touch, get centered, get in touch with that inner power that we all have. When we get in touch with that inner self, there's a power there. That's who we really are. And if we can just get in touch with that and, let it shine through. We want to be very loving and kind, but we also want to be clear about who we are,
Who we are. Yeah. I want to say it that about that. I remember just as a young child, I heard more times than I care to repeat. Well, you are too big for your britches. What do you know? What what does that mean? I'm too big for my britches. I had no idea. Because I often did know what I was talking about. I had, wisdom as a little child that a lot of my family still don't to this day know. So, so that inner knowing of who you are, let it shine. Be courageous, be who you are. I didn't have to judge them for not knowing, but it would be a shame for me to not shine. It would be a shame for me not be who I am because they didn't get it.
Well, that's so true about ageism. It goes on both ends,
Yep.
young and old. Rod Stewart, it's funny, his first songs were about him being too young, and then his later songs were about him being too old. And
yeah, it's true.
When are you ever perfect or right? I mean, the thing is, prejudices and stereotypes hurt
Yes.
people negatively, no
Yes,
matter
they
what
do.
they are, whether it's
Yes.
racial, gender, or age. And so our best way of combating that
Yeah.
is to be centered and show that
And
we are
what-
not that.
And what's so important about what you said is that it hurts them. You're not talking about hurting their feelings.
Yeah.
It limits their potential.
Yes,
It
it does.
limits their expression.
Yep.
With your judgments, you stop them from being who they are. That's
Yeah.
just not
That's
acceptable.
exactly right. You stop someone from being who they are, and you're hurting them and you're hurting yourself.
Yes,
You do.
absolutely.
Any
You're
kind of
missing
hurt.
out. Yes. Yes.
And then we also see it with doctors. I read
Oh
about
God, this is a good one.
It's hilarious. She said, her doctor obviously dealt with a lot of people who are hard of hearing. And so when he was talking to her, he was shouting. And so she said, you don't have to yell at me. I can hear you just fine when you talk. But, that happens a lot too. My daughter, who's in her 40s, she's pregnant. And every doctor she has dealt with on this has come up with this, they call it advanced maternal age.
Like they see her differently. They see her differently as a mom.
They see her differently. Yeah,
Wow.
her fertility doctor gave her a long list of reasons why it may not work, but it worked. And, her OB, I was with her last week on her doctor appointment, and she's getting close now. She's about week 37. And so her OB was saying, well, at week 39, if you're not ready, we would like to induce you. And my daughter said, why? And she said,
why?
Well, because of your age. And she said, well, I haven't had any problems with this pregnancy because of age. And the doctor admitted it. She said, yes, you've done extremely well. And so my daughter said, so why would I choose to do that? Right. And, she started giving her all these reasons about all these horrible things that could happen, which is what my daughter's heard from every doctor along the way. And she's had a very nice pregnancy. So finally the doctor said, well, if you refuse to do this, then you'll have to come in here every other day and have this monitor on you for the baby's heartbeat. And she said, okay, I can do that.
Wow. Yeah. That's a classic ageism example. Wow.
Such a terrible ageism example. And, this is, for me, someone in their 40s is a kid,
Right.
But,
you're just a kid. Yeah.
But exactly. They have a term for it. It's advanced maternal age, which is, yeah.
It sounds horrible.
It just sounds horrible.
Yeah.
And yet, I have to admit, one of the fertility doctors that she spoke to, not the one that she ultimately worked with, but he was very good. And he said, oh, women have, children well into their 40s,
Yep.
But that's another area, because you're dealing with people who are charged with helping you with your health care. Right. But again, we have to take charge.
Yes.
We have to, like, my daughter did a really good job of taking charge.
Right.
And she's going to have to, she's going to have to battle with this, as she goes in the next few weeks.
Right.
But, it's unfortunate, but we can't let their stereotypes again limit us. I mean,
Right.
it would have been, I think, a sad thing if she had scared my daughter and she would just do whatever she said just because of her advanced maternal age. And so, it's hard in those situations sometimes. It's
Yeah.
easy to get frightened or uncomfortable. And, again, we want to center, try and
Yeah.
get in touch with the place inside. Some people call it their happy place. In yoga, we
Yeah.
call it our inner self, where it's peaceful
Yeah.
and full of love. We want to try and, step out of the situation and do what we can to center. We have to overcome these stereotypes. We have to speak up and not get pushed around. But at the
Right.
same time, we have to not let their images or their limitations.
Yeah, well, especially when they're in that authority position, right? Because
Yeah.
it's so easy to say, oh, he's a doctor, she's a doctor, and
Yeah.
they're much smarter than I and blah, blah, blah. But you know yourself better than anybody does.
Yeah.
You can't give over to authority in those situations unless you know something's wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not trying to be crazy. They're
Right. If there was a situation, if the baby was really in distress, then she would do it,
of course, yeah.
But, I remember when, I had, a couple years ago, I had breast cancer. And so when I went to see the radiation doctor, he had all my paper, we had to wait a really long time. And so he had all my paperwork and he walked in and he looked at me and he goes, oh, he said, I was expecting something very different when he saw my age. He said,
What does
he
that
was
mean?
expecting to see someone overweight and, obviously looking a lot older, I guess, or depressing.
Why?
I don't know what he was expecting. His image was off.
Oh, wow.
And what he was recommending to me was different. He told me it was different because of that.
Wow.
Yeah. Because
Wow.
he said, obviously, you're very different than people your age, what his stereotype was. I corrected
You're
him
right.
on that, but, and so he said, so I think this course of treatment will be just fine for you. And when I told him I was refusing to take the tamoxifen, I would do the radiation, but, I wasn't going to take this drug afterwards. And, he basically said then, he said, well, he said, for you, he said, there's a 3% difference in
Wow.
survival rate, whether you take it or not. He said, if you were, the typical person your age and, 50 pounds overweight and, having other issues, other
Right.
physical issues, he said, I tell you, you had to take it.
Wow.
So, there's another area of prejudice. And, like his stereotype was very clear. And I thought, well, thank God I'm not 50 pounds overweight.
Right.
I would have gotten a course of treatment that, was maybe not the right thing for me.
Yeah, it would have been horrible for your body. That
Yeah.
tamoxifen, gross.
Yeah. So, we have to deal with that. And I think whenever we come across it, whenever someone's putting that limitation on us, it's important to step back because it's people, like you said, people in authority. And so, there's a tendency to think, okay, they know. So that's when we have to step back and say, who am I? Am I this person they're talking about? Who am I? What's the right thing for me? Do whatever you can to get centered or meditative and just say, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And then ask,
What do I need? Yeah.
what do I need? What do I need?
Yeah, let that guidance come from inside, so that it's your inner authority that's guiding you through that challenge, whether it's a health challenge or whatever.
Right. Whatever the challenge is, a health challenge, a work challenge, I mean, the reality is that prejudice exists,
Yes, it does.
And the best thing we can do, whatever the kind of prejudice it is, the best thing we can do is step out of the stereotype and try to help the person who is trying to limit us,
Right.
help them, see that that's not okay. See that that's, what they're doing.
Yeah. Show them that what is best for you.
Yeah.
You don't have any doubt about that, just be a doctor, but I know what's best for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, you've been through a lot of health challenges, and you
Yep.
know, they're always trying to impose something on you, and
Yep,
you know, and
definitely.
my mother-in-law, who's turning 96 in a couple months. I mean, she's a spunky individual, and when a couple years ago she had a heart problem, and this was an interesting thing too, because initially at the hospital they were very busy and they weren't going to deal with her. I mean,
Mhm.
basically she was having a heart attack, which she didn't know that. She thought she had indigestion. She thought she had eaten something bad. But because of her age, I mean, she was
They
really
were just gonna let her have a heart attack? Are
well,
you kidding?
they were kind of going to push her aside. The fact is, though, she had been on the board of that hospital. So she
Wow.
picked up the phone and called the CEO, who immediately got her into a room. And I thought, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
But like, she was really aggravated. I mean, she gave them all a lot of grief afterwards. She said, so if I hadn't been on the board and I didn't pull some strings,
You just let me die.
you would have just let me sit there, and I mean, she really gave them a lot of grief, because that's what would have happened,
No kidding. Yeah, it would have,
because she
yeah.
had connections. She got primo care, and she ended up being just fine. But if that wasn't the case, she probably wouldn't be with us now. And
Wow.
it's like, you're not valuable because you're in your 90s. And
Right.
that's something where, I mean, she was able to advocate for herself, but very often we have to help and advocate for someone. And
That's interesting. One of the things that I keep thinking when you talk about your experience with breast cancer and stuff, and of course what I've been through with my heart and your mother-in-law and stuff, when you're in that situation and you're in the doctor's office and you're in, that stark mode of fear, panic, what is happening, that kind of thing. What's a good technique to just center at that moment, just so that maybe you might, well, maybe if you're good at it, you can get real connected to the inner self and know what it is that's happening and feel right about it. But maybe you just need something that can calm you down and get you a little more centered so you don't make dumb decisions.
yeah, there's a really important practice. And, even with all my years of yoga, when I was on the gurney before they wheeled me in to
Oh,
surgery, I did this one where you just put your awareness at the base of your spine, and then you inhale and you visualize a light. First, it comes up to your heart center, to the heart, along the spine behind the heart, and you just allow it to go out like in a pink cloud, expand out, and you bring it in, and you do that a few times. And then you bring the light up, and it comes up here in the forehead and then above your head, and then you bring a white light down over you. And then after a while, you go back up and you bring this all the way down the spine, and then you can do it again. And I
ooh,
would do it, and I would just let the heart expand, this pink light back and
oh,
forth.
I like that.
Then you bring it all the way up, and the white light down comes over you, and you do that. You do that for 5 minutes, you'll be in good shape.
You'll be you'll be all blissed out.
Yeah.
What are you
Go
talking
ahead,
about?
wheel me
Cancer? I
in,
don't got
wheel me
cancer.
in. I'm ready.
I
I'm
love
ready.
it. Oh, that's a good one. I'm gonna remember that myself. I'm
That's,
gonna try that myself. I like that.
yeah, it's a great one. It's a great one to do. And it's something we can all do. You don't have to be experienced at centering to do it. You just do it, and it will take you to a good place.
I love it. Good advice. Don't let anybody do ageism on you.
That's right. Young or old, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So we are just about at our time here, and I hope this has been helpful.
Yeah.
And because I know we all experience it, and
Yes.
if we can help each other by working with these techniques. And please, if you have a story or a situation where you're not sure how to deal with it, maybe we can help. I'm not saying we can, but maybe
Yep.
we can. Let us know. We'll be
Yeah.
happy to help you. We're happy to try. And
Well, and you're the greatest person to talk about ageism, because you don't think about the numbers. And I've never, in all the 40 years I've known you, have I ever thought, oh, Chris is whatever age number, whatever number is, because you don't relate to the numbers. You
Yeah.
just are who you are.
Right.
And, you know, you're never whining about, oh, I'm getting old and I'm getting creaky. And I don't know anybody else who doesn't do that, you know, that doesn't, you know, whine about how they feel when they get up, or they got inflammation, or they got this, or they got that. So folks, if you think yoga doesn't work, I got news for you. It works.
It works. It works. Yeah.
It does
That's,
work.
that's a great point you brought up. Don't think about the numbers. I mean, I try not to let people put that
Yep.
on me, you know.
Yes. Well, and it really dictates how you have responses to the world too.
Yes, it
You know,
does.
you
Yeah.
don't act like an
Yeah.
old person. Like old people do that, you know,
Yeah.
they just say, oh, I'm old, you know, I'm
Yeah.
creaky, I can't do that.
Yeah, once you
Nah.
start thinking like that, that's exactly what happens.
That's exactly what happens.
Yep.
Yeah, good stuff, girl. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us, and
Yes.
we'll see you again soon, or talk to you again soon.
Yes, absolutely. Bye for now.
Bye.